Is South Lebanon the next frontier for Israel's settler movement? As heavy Israeli bombardment has displaced over 90,000 Lebanese and a ground invasion looms in the future, senior Israeli politicians have called to occupy all of southeast Lebanon up to the Litani River and clear the enemy Shia population away. Although the idea seems drastic, this wouldn't be the first time. In 1982, Israel's military invaded Lebanon, occupying the south until 2000, when persistent resistance from Hezbollah forced them to withdraw. Back in the 80s too, there were calls to settle South Lebanon. Yet Israel's settler movement didn't have the political power. Today, it's a different story. On Telegram channels with over 200,000 subscribers, users share images of Lebanese cars fleeing from the south, calling it the Nakba of the Lebanese, referring to the ethnic cleansing of Palestinians by Jewish militias in 1948. More serious, however, is Uri Tzavon, in biblical Hebrew meaning "O awaken, wind of the north." This is a movement to settle South Lebanon, inspired by previous successes of Israel's settler movement, including in Syria's Golan Heights, in the West Bank, and a revived movement to settle Gaza. Its aims are to settle many of the currently Lebanese towns south of the Litani River amid the ongoing conflict between Israel and Hezbollah. From December, they started suggesting Hebrew names for Jewish settlements in Lebanon. By April, they were holding their first rally, and from June, they were hosting online conferences with thousands of attendees, at which famous figures spoke, from Daniela Weiss, the famous settlement leader, to Hagi Ben Artzi, better known as the brother-in-law of Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. Now, this movement has adopted strange tactics to further their cause. They've dropped balloons and flyers on southern Lebanese towns, telling residents to leave because it was part of Greater Israel. They've also shared online interactive maps just last week where you can choose the location of the settlement you would like and give it a name. And perhaps most weirdly, they've advertised kayaking on the Litani River, because according to them, the real tragedy is that the waterway is not living up to its true tourist potential. Now, this movement may seem fringe and on the extreme of Israeli politics. But after all, cabinet ministers Bezalel Smotrich and Itamar Ben-Gvir, along with their parties, religious Zionism and Jewish power, were also once considered fringe actors in Israeli politics, beyond the pale of cooperation. Bezalel Smotrich was called a Jewish terrorist by Israel's Shin Bet security agency, while Ben-Gvir had racked up an impressive 8 convictions related to incitement or terrorism. Yet currently, Smotrich is leading the settlement administration of the West Bank, while Ben-Gvir has cemented his grip over the country's police force. Both ministers, along with their parties, were able to enter Israel's government in 2022 due to the country's fragile political system. And with Netanyahu's current coalition divided and tenuous as ever, opportunities for future influence for the far right may not be hard to imagine. But is far-right influence even needed for this settlement movement? After all, Jewish settlements in the West Bank began due to the 1967 war, after which, under a Labour left-wing government, residential fortresses or ring settlements were built that separated Jerusalem from the rest of the West Bank for security against the PLO. Yet, long after the war, these settlements remained, until today, where there are over 700,000 settlers in the occupied West Bank and East Jerusalem. Central to driving this process of settlement expansion were key figures such as Daniela Weiss and Yehudit Katzover. It is these same figures today that are advising the movement to settle South Lebanon, using their experience from the past to help popularize the current movement. So, as some in Israeli society are cheering on the displacement of Lebanese citizens, while others are calling for military occupation of South Lebanon, could we be seeing history repeating itself?